Sometimes, the people who laugh at your struggle are the same ones who end up working for you. This is the story of Zara, the girl who turned humiliation into power. It was a humid morning in Nairobi, and the sound of students rushing through the gates of St. Mary's High School filled the air. Zara, a quiet, modest girl in faded shoes and a second-hand uniform, clutched her worn-out notebooks to her chest. Her eyes carried both determination and fear, the fear of being noticed, and the fire of a dream she couldn't yet name. The school was elite, where the children of the rich learned, not the poor. But Zara was there on scholarship, one that her late mother had prayed for. Her father worked as a mechanic in the outskirts of the city, barely able to afford their rent. Yet, every morning, Zara polished her shoes until they shone, and whispered to herself, "Someday, I'll build something big enough that even they'll know my name." That, they, included David Mwangi, tall, confident, with the charm of a born leader and the arrogance of privilege. His father owned one of the largest construction firms in the city. David's friends followed him like shadows, laughing at every cruel joke he made. That morning, when Zara accidentally dropped her books in class, David sneered, "Careful, Zara. You might dirty our floor with your village dust." The class erupted in laughter. Zara froze. The humiliation hit like fire under her skin. She bent down to pick up her books, but her trembling fingers couldn't move fast enough. David leaned closer, smirking. "You know, maybe you should study outside. You'd fit better with the gardeners." That laughter, cruel, echoing, etched itself deep in Zara's soul. She didn't cry. Not then. She simply looked up, straight into his eyes, and said softly, "One day, you'll remember this moment, David. I promise you that." The class went silent for a second. Then laughter returned, louder than before. But for the first time, David looked uneasy. There was something in her eyes, calm, but fierce. After school, Zara walked home on foot, 3 long miles to save the bus fare. She passed through markets filled with dust and noise, her mind replaying that scene again and again. But instead of anger, she felt fuel, like every word had added to a fire she couldn't put out. At home, her father was working under a broken car. His hands were stained with oil. "Zara," he smiled faintly, "how was school?" She hesitated. It was, okay. But inside, she whispered, "Someday, I'll make you proud, Baba. I'll show them who I am." Years passed, and the laughter faded, but never disappeared. Zara worked harder than anyone else in school. She studied by candlelight, sold fruit after class, and secretly read business books she borrowed from the library. When graduation came, David's name was called for Best Presenter. Zara's name was called for Best Academic Excellence. The applause for David was loud. The applause for Zara, polite but brief. Still, she smiled, because she knew her journey was just beginning. 5 years later, life had changed. David was working in his father's company. Smooth suits, fancy office, expensive watch. And Zara? She was working 3 jobs while studying business at the University of Nairobi, still wearing the same determination in her eyes. She started small, a side hustle making handmade leather handbags. At first, she sold them on a street corner, then online. The customers grew. Slowly, Zara learned about branding, about profit margin, and how to lead. People laughed at her again. "You think you can compete with companies that have millions?" But she didn't listen. She remembered that classroom laugh. One evening, after 3 years of struggle, one of her designs caught the attention of a European influencer visiting Nairobi. Within weeks, her brand, Zara Luxe Leather, went viral on social media. Orders poured in. Zara didn't sleep for days. She worked, packed, and delivered by hand. The girl who once couldn't afford bus fare was now hiring employees, women from the same slum she grew up in. Still, she hadn't seen David since high school, until fate brought them face to face again. Sometimes, life has a funny way of bringing people back, not to repeat the past, but to watch how much you've grown from it. It was a bright Friday morning when Zara received an invitation that made her freeze. It was a glossy card, embossed in gold. Mwangi & Sons Construction Company, Business Networking Gala. Before going forward to the story, tell me in the comment where are you watching from my video. And don't forget to like and subscribe African Heart Tales. Let's move to the story. She had heard the name before, too many times. It was David's family business. For a moment, she wanted to tear the card and throw it away. But something inside her whispered, "No, you've worked too hard to hide. Walk in there, Zara. Walk in proud." That night, she chose a simple but elegant black gown, paired with handmade gold earrings, from her own collection. Her driver dropped her off at the Hilton Grand Hall, where luxury cars lined up like soldiers. The air smelled of perfume, power, and pretense. Zara walked through the doors, head high, smile calm, eyes confident. People turned to look at her. Some whispered, trying to guess who she was. And there he was, David Mwangi, standing by the bar, laughing with investors, wearing a navy blue suit and his same old arrogant grin. But time had changed him, slightly tired eyes, a sharp jawline, and a confidence that came from privilege, not hustle. When he saw her, his laughter froze mid-air. For a moment, the world around them went silent. "Zara," he said, disbelief in his voice. She smiled, graceful, calm. "Hello, David. It's been a long time." He blinked, eyes scanning her like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. You look different." Zara chuckled softly. "So do you. Still love your suits, I see." They shared a brief silence before a colleague interrupted. "David, aren't you going to introduce us?" David stuttered slightly. Yes. This is Zara. We went to school together." The colleague's eyes widened. "Wait, Zara? As in Zara Lux Leather?" Zara nodded humbly. "Yes, I run the brand." The man laughed, shaking her hand enthusiastically. "Your handbags are in my wife's wardrobe. She adores them." David's smile faltered. The same man who once called her village dust now stood beside her, silent, unsure. Later that evening, during the investor dinner, Zara was invited to speak on Women in Business Leadership. As she walked to the stage, David couldn't look away. Her voice was calm, strong, and real. "When I started my business, I had nothing but an idea and borrowed confidence. People told me I wasn't good enough, that I didn't belong. But here's the thing, success doesn't ask where you came from. It only cares how far you're willing to go." The audience erupted in applause. Cameras flashed. Investors leaned forward with interest. And in that moment, David realized, she wasn't just successful. She had become everything he once laughed at, and more. After the event, he approached her, his tone suddenly softer. "Zara, you've done well. Really well. I didn't expect this." She smiled politely. "Neither did I. But life surprises us all." He hesitated, almost embarrassed. "Listen, I was young back then. You know, stupid jokes, childish behavior." "You don't have to explain," Zara interrupted gently. "You gave me the motivation I didn't know I needed." She walked away before he could respond, graceful, confident, untouchable. Over the next few weeks, rumors spread like wildfire. Zara Lux was negotiating a partnership deal with Mwangi and Sons, one that would decide the company's future expansion. David's father, Mr. Mwangi Sr., admired Zara's success and professionalism. He personally reached out for a meeting. "Miss Zara, we'd like to collaborate with your brand for our luxury interiors division," he said, smiling warmly. "It would be an honor to work with you." Zara agreed, but not for revenge. She saw opportunity. She saw growth. Yet fate had its own way of tying loose ends. When the contract day arrived, she entered the boardroom with her assistant, laptop, and calm authority. David was already seated across the table, visibly nervous. As the presentations began, David's team started making last-minute excuses, trying to claim leadership on the project. But Zara's preparation was flawless. She countered every argument with data, precision, and class. Finally, Mr. Mwangi Sr. stood up, smiling proudly. "I believe it's clear. Zara Lux will lead this collaboration. I'm trusting her completely." The room applauded. David sank slightly in his chair, his face unreadable. When the meeting ended, Zara turned to him with a smile. "Don't worry, David. I'll make sure your company benefits from this too." Her words were kind, but her eyes said everything. The balance had shifted. That night, Zara sat by her window, thinking of her past, that classroom, the laughter, the humiliation. Now, she wasn't angry. She was free. She whispered to herself, "The best revenge is success. And peace, that's the real victory." They laughed when she was poor. Now, they can't stand her shine. But when envy enters a man's heart, even admiration becomes poison. It had been 3 months since Zara Lux partnered with Mwangi and Sons. The deal had gone viral in local business headline. Young female entrepreneur secures landmark contract with leading construction firm. Zara's face appeared in magazines, talk shows, and billboard. Her calm confidence became her brand. But for David Mwangi, every success story she starred in felt like a reminder of his biggest mistake. At first, he told himself it didn't matter. He even laughed about it to his friends. "She's doing well. Good for her. Let her have her moment." But inside, something burned. At the office, he'd overhear employees praising her professionalism. At meetings, his father mentioned her name with pride. And one afternoon, when his father said, "Zara reminds me of what true leadership looks like," David's stomach twisted. He couldn't sleep that night. He kept remembering that classroom, when he'd mocked her, laughed at her shoes, and called her village dust. Now the village girl was the pride of Nairobi's business world, while he, the once promising heir, was quietly fading in his father's shadow. One morning, he made a decision. He walked into Zara's office without warning. Zara looked up, startled but composed. "David, this is unexpected. I needed to talk," he said, trying to sound calm. "About us and the project." Zara folded her hands neatly on the desk. "The project is going perfectly. As for us, there's nothing to discuss." He sighed, forcing a smile. "Zara, you've changed. You're colder now. I just want to make things right." "Maybe we could," she interrupted gently but firmly. "David, this isn't about the past anymore. What's done is done. We're professionals now. Let's keep it that way." Her words were polite, but her eyes held a quiet strength. He left her office smiling, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was wounded pride masked as charm. Over the next few weeks, David began attending every joint meeting between their companies, offering suggestions that often undermined Zara's leadership. His comments started polite. Maybe Zara's team could take a simpler route, but soon turned into passive-aggressive jabs. "Well, not everyone understands corporate strategy the way we do, right?" his father noticed. So did Zara's staff. Yet Zara never lost her composure. Each time, she countered with logic, professionalism, and an effortless grace that made his bitterness look childish. But behind that calm, she felt the sting. She could sense his jealousy growing like a dark cloud. Then came the scandal. One morning, social media buzzed with fake rumors. Zara Lux accused of stealing design ideas from European brands. Anonymous accounts posted edited photos and false documents. Within hours, hashtags began trending. Her brand's reputation trembled. Zara's phone rang non-stop, journalists, partners, clients. She sat silently at her desk, scrolling through the chaos, until one message caught her eye, from an anonymous number. "Now you know what it feels like to be humiliated." Her heart sank. She didn't need to guess. The tone was too familiar. "David." Instead of reacting, Zara stayed silent. She called her legal team, traced the false claims, and within 48 hours, exposed the truth. The evidence had been fabricated from a fake consultancy email, one linked back to a temporary account created under David's department. It exploded like a bomb. Mr. Mwangi Sr. summoned his son immediately. "David, did you have something to do with this nonsense?" David stammered. "No, I didn't mean for it to." His father's voice thundered. "You brought shame to this family, to this company. Do you realize the damage you've caused?" The board suspended him for internal review. Meanwhile, Zara said nothing publicly. When reporters asked her about the controversy, she smiled and said, "Sometimes people attack what they can't understand. But truth always shines through." That single quote went viral. Her followers doubled overnight. Zara Lux's sales skyrocketed. And David? He became the laughingstock of Nairobi's business circles, the man who tried to ruin the woman he once mocked, only to make her more famous. Weeks later, he showed up at her office again, this time, looking broken. "Zara. I'm sorry. Truly. I don't know what came over me. I was angry, jealous, stupid." Zara looked at him for a long moment, then said quietly, "You were right about one thing, David. You didn't know what you had until it was gone. But I'm not angry anymore." She walked to the window, gazing at the city skyline. "You taught me what pain feels like. But you also taught me strength. For that, I thank you." He swallowed hard. "Can we start over? As friends?" Zara smiled sadly. "I've already forgiven you. But some chapters are meant to end, David. I wish you peace." She extended her hand. He shook it, slowly, realizing this was goodbye. That night, Zara returned home, exhausted but free. She sat by her window again, whispering the same words from years ago. "One day, they'll know my name." And now, they did. They say time humbles even the proud. But sometimes, humility doesn't come gently, it comes crashing, breaking everything before rebuilding the soul. Months passed since the scandal that nearly destroyed David's reputation. His father had demoted him, handing full control of the Mwangi project to another executive. His once busy office now sat silent, a desk, a few old files, and memories that stung like open wounds. Everywhere he went, whispers followed. That's him, the guy who tried to ruin Zara Lux. Such a shame, he had everything. He couldn't escape it. His phone stopped ringing. Friends who once laughed at his jokes now avoided him at business events. David spent long nights alone, replaying every decision, every cruel laugh in that classroom, every jealous word he'd said. He'd thought he was better than her. Now, she was everything he wished he could be. Meanwhile, Zara's success continued to rise. Her company opened new branches in Nairobi, Mombasa, and even Kigali. Her brand represented strength and grace, but inside, Zara was tired. The fame, the pressure, the endless eyes watching her every move, it became heavy. Sometimes, at night, she would remember her childhood and miss the simplicity of it all. One rainy evening, she drove through the older part of town, the same roads she used to walk barefoot as a child. The rain tapped gently on her car window when she noticed something unusual. At a small bus stop, drenched and shivering under a broken umbrella, stood David. She blinked, unsure if it was really him. His once polished suit was faded, his shoes muddy, and his eyes, hollow. For a moment, she considered driving past. After all, he had earned this. But something stopped her. A quiet voice in her heart whispered, "You've already won. Now show who you really are." Zara pulled over and rolled down the window. "David?" He looked up slowly, disbelief in his eyes. "Zara? What are you doing here? Get in. You'll catch pneumonia standing there." He hesitated, pride and shame warring inside him. But the rain was merciless. He opened the door and got in, dripping wet. They drove in silence for a while. The city lights reflected on the wet roads, and the only sound was the soft hum of the car's engine. "You don't have to do this," he finally said. "After everything I did." "Maybe not," Zara replied softly. "But I remember what it felt like when no one was there for me." He turned to her, guilt filling his eyes. "Zara, I don't expect forgiveness. I was cruel, selfish, and blind. You deserved better. I ruined my own life because I couldn't stand to see you succeed." She stayed quiet for a moment, then said, "The world is strange, David. The same people who laugh at you today might kneel before you tomorrow. But what matters most is who you become, not what they think." He looked down, tears mixing with rain on his face. "I don't know who I am anymore." "Then start finding out," she said. "From the bottom, like the rest of us." Zara dropped him off at a small hostel in the city center. Before leaving, she handed him a card. "There's a rehabilitation and mentorship program I fund for unemployed youth. Go there tomorrow. Tell them I sent you." He stared at the card, speechless. "You'd really help me, after all that?" She smiled faintly. "It's not about you, David. It's about doing the right thing." Then she drove away, her heart heavy, but free. Weeks turned into months again. David joined the program quietly, working with others who had lost their jobs, their homes, or their direction in life. He swept floors, served meals, and attended leadership workshops. At first, people didn't recognize him. When they did, they whispered, "That's the guy who ruined his career." But he didn't argue anymore. He just worked. He learned humility, teamwork, and empathy, things his wealth had never taught him. One afternoon, while helping a young man prepare for a job interview, he realized something profound. He finally felt peace. Not the kind that comes from success, but from surrender. Then, one day, he got a call from an unfamiliar number. "Hello, David. This is the Zara Lux Foundation. Miss Zara asked if you'd be willing to lead a new mentorship branch in Nakuru." He froze. She wants me to lead it?" "Yes. She said you've learned what leadership really means." David closed his eyes, overwhelmed. That night, he wrote a letter to Zara. It read, "Zara, you taught me what life never could, that grace is stronger than revenge. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I promise to honor the chance you've given me. Thank you for seeing a human being where others saw a failure." David, he never knew if she read it. But deep inside, he hoped she smiled. Back in her office, Zara did see the letter. And she did smile, because in that moment, she realized something. Her success wasn't just about proving others wrong, it was about lifting others right. And though their story began with laughter and cruelty, it had become a lesson, that no one is beyond redemption. Life has a strange way of bringing people back together, not to repeat the past, but to see how much they've changed. 2 years passed since that rainy night. Zara's company, Zara Lux, had become a household name across Africa, not just for fashion, but for its community projects and empowerment programs. She had wealth, fame, and influence, but her greatest satisfaction came from watching young dreamers rise from nothing, just as she once did. One bright morning, she stood backstage at a leadership conference organized by her foundation. The hall was filled with hundreds of students, entrepreneurs, and business leaders, all waiting to hear her speak. As she reviewed her notes, the coordinator rushed over and said, "Miss Zara, the opening speaker has arrived, Mr. David Mwangi." Zara paused. She hadn't seen him since that night. When she walked onto the stage, applause filled the air, but then came another wave of claps as David stepped beside her, dressed in a simple but elegant suit, smiling humbly. For a moment, their eyes met. There was no bitterness. No pain. Just quiet respect. David took the microphone first. His voice, once arrogant and loud, was now calm and steady. "A few years ago," he began, "I thought success was about power, control, and being above others. But I was wrong. True success is lifting others as you climb." The crowd listened intently as he continued. "I laughed at a girl once, a poor girl, because I thought I was better than her. Today, that same girl gave me the chance to rebuild my life. Her name is Zara, and I stand here because she believed I could change." Gasps filled the room. Zara's eyes glistened, but she held back tears. When he finished, she stepped forward, clapping softly. "Thank you, David," she said. "Forgiveness doesn't erase the past, but it writes a better future. I hope everyone here remembers, kindness is never weakness. It's the real sign of strength." The audience rose in a standing ovation. Cameras flashed. But in that moment, neither of them cared about fame or applause. They had finally healed. After the event, they met outside near the garden, where the sun painted golden light across the trees. "You spoke beautifully," Zara said. David smiled. "You taught me how to speak from the heart." "So," she asked, "what's next for you?" "I'm opening a mentorship center in Nakuru next month. For kids who grew up like we did, some rich in money, others rich in dreams." Zara nodded proudly. "Then I guess this is your new beginning." "Ours," he corrected gently. "Because your grace made it possible." They shook hands, not as rivals or enemies, but as two people who had finally learned that life's greatest wealth is character. As Zara drove home that evening, she thought about everything that had happened, the laughter, the pain, the lessons. She whispered to herself, "Maybe every wound hides a lesson, and every fall, a rise." Her phone buzzed, hundreds of messages from fans, partners, and journalists praising the event. But she only smiled at one message. "Thank you for teaching us the meaning of true success," signed, the mentorship team. And that's how life turned full circle. He laughed at her once, but in the end, he learned to respect her strength. Because karma doesn't always punish, sometimes, it teaches. And love doesn't always come from romance, sometimes, it's shown through forgiveness. If this story touched your heart, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell. More emotional African stories are coming your way, tales of love, karma, and destiny.